friends, and welcome to episode 594 of Good Luck High Five. It's a podcast for anybody who likes Magic the Gathering, especially if you like Modern Horizons 3 after the pre-release last weekend, which count me among those numbers because I'm very, very excited to talk about it this week on the show. And you might wonder why I just said that part of the intro. Normally that's Megan's job. It's because Megan's not here today. We have a guest host in the form of Judge Rob. Hi, Judge Rob.
Hello.
Hey, I feel like you were just here.
Yes, I was, and I'll be back tomorrow. And
yeah, you're hanging out here a lot, Rob.
Yep.
Thank you so much for filling in for Megan. She's feeling a little bit under the weather today, so we've got Robin to handle her spot this week. So I'm one of your hosts, Maria, and this is Judge Rob, as I've just said.
I'm your substitute host, Rob.
Yeah, yes. And you also played the pre-release this past
did.
weekend. What a fun time. We're going to
really
talk
good.
about our decks. We're going to talk about what worked with them, what didn't work with them, looking ahead to draft at your LGS and playing draft on Arena because it's now on Arena, everybody. If you didn't know, now you know. So we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty about the new set. I'm super stoked. Rob, if you could sum up your pre-release day in one word, what would it be?
Ral.
Oh, Ral. Am I going to make a guess about your deck that you were playing a Planeswalker?
Yeah.
I also was playing a Planeswalker, Rob.
Ooh.
I know.
Which color of Planeswalker?
Well, we're going to have to, that's a little teaser for everybody.
All
We're
right.
going to wait and find out. 2 Planeswalkers. Interesting. Okay. But before we get into the show, everybody, we just want to say thank you to everyone who helps make it happen over on patreon.com/GLHF Magic. You can scoot your little toot over there and check out all the different levels that we have for donations. Something for everyone, I like to say. You get Discord access to longer episodes, ad-free episodes of both Good Luck High Five and our Commander Show, Commander Arcade, and just a really fun time. I really love everybody who helps us out, and so does Megan. It really makes us able to do this show. We could not produce it without you, so thank you to everybody who helps back us. And we've got 2 new backers to celebrate this week with puns to thank them for joining at the $5 a month level or more. And the first person we got to thank is Anna Springsteen. Yay, Anna! Thank you so much, Anna Springsteen. You really bruised up the place by becoming a patron. Do you see what I did there? We also have to thank Vanessa.
Yeah, Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa. We were a hot messa until you brought in your contribution.
Yeah, great one, Rob. High five. We got there. I made Rob do one, but look at that. That was an excellent one, Rob.
I volunteered.
You volunteered, and I was going to insist anyway. So thank you so much to Anna and Vanessa. You too can have a wonderful pun like that. $5 a month or more over at patreon.com/GLHF Magic. Before we dive in as well, quick shout out to our sponsor, Card Kingdom. You can check them out at cardkingdom.com/GLHF to get whatever you want. Modern Horizons 3 is going to be on sale this Friday, so check it out if you want to get a box to draft with your friends. These modern sets that have been made for limited are usually excellent to draft, so I'm hoping this one will not break the mold as far as that is concerned. So if you're interested in that, do a team draft with some buddies, get 6 friends together. I hope it's going to be great, and I can only imagine it will be. You can buy your box from Card Kingdom.
Yep. I just ordered a bunch of singles from them. They ship them the same day.
Oh, wow.
They're good.
Okay, so true testimony here from Judge Rob about Card Kingdom. They've supported us for years. They're a great company, and they'll ship out your order in one fell swoop and even sometimes same day, like Rob says. You can check them out at cardkingdom.com/GLHF. And speaking of Modern Horizons 3, quick pitch before we start the show to go check out our episode of Commander Arcade featuring the Modern Horizons 3 pre-con decks if you haven't seen it yet. It's a great time. We play them mostly correctly.
Honestly, playing a new deck with new cards that you don't know is always at least a challenge.
Oh, yes. It is. It is. For judges and non-judges alike.
Oh, yeah, for everybody.
You know? But it's a delightful episode. I make a mistake and I put myself in Goif jail, which was so funny because I was editing and I was like, oh no, I did this stupid thing and I was so mad at myself because, you know, we were excited to do the episode sponsored by Wizards, all that. And I'm like, and I was a big dum-dum. But then I went and played a game of pickleball because you got to pickle it out sometimes. And I got home and I was like, wait a second, what if I made lemonade out of this lemon? Which was doing a little comedy bit about putting myself in Goif jail. You know, and comedy can fix anything, honestly.
Fixes, yeah, a lot of things.
Almost anything.
Almost anything.
But not a torn seat in your pants. It's not going to do that.
I mean, it'll make you feel better about it, which is like 2/3 of the battle.
That's
like,
true. Great point, Rob. Great point. So check it out. You can see me putting myself in Goyf jail and a lot of other action. That's at youtube.com/@GLHF Commander. We'd love you to have you over there and hit the sub button and all the rest of it. It's a great time. Coming up, we've got really sweet episodes. Yeah. I'm so excited for. When's our next one coming out? Is it coming out next week already?
It's next week already, yeah.
Next week already. Okay, so we've got a new one coming out next week. If you want to get it early, you'll get it a day early if you're a patron at $5 a month or more. It's going to be Silver Bordered Commander, which...
it's very fun.
Let me tell you. You're going to need that extra day to get over what happens in that game. It'll leave you blissed out and traumatized.
We all learn how to count.
Well, yeah, that's also true. Yeah. So check that out. Keep your eyes open for that on Sunday, patrons Monday for everybody else. YouTube.com/@GLHF Commander. Well, Rob, let's get into it. It's time for some Modern Horizons 3 chit chat. All right, everyone, it's time to talk about Modern Horizons 3, our experience at the pre-release this past weekend. Rob, you have your deck here. You've uploaded it onto Moxfield for us to check out. I'm going to put a picture of it on the video for everybody watching at home, and I'll link it in the show notes as well if you want to play along. This is a little Jeskai number here.
Yeah, a little bit of Jeskai energy. I got a bunch of good energy cards, and I opened Ral Monsoon Mage. And turns out he's actually, like, I mentioned him during last week's episode. And
our 3-hour episode.
Yeah. But he's even better than I really anticipated, because like I cast him on 2 and then cast a spell on 3 and transformed him.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, let's go. I'm just going to plus Ral because they didn't have a creature. And then if they did have a creature, Ral got to kill the creature and was left with the loyalty. And so then they're forced to interact with Ral for the remainder of the game while they figure out what's going on.
Ral, so when you flip him, he turns into his Planeswalker self.
Yeah.
And he has additional loyalty counter on him. For each instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn, he starts with 2.
Yeah, which is always at least 3, because you had to play 1 to transform.
Right, exactly.
And so when you transform Ral, he'll have 3, which means that his -2 can kill a 2 toughness creature. Which if they're like, my smart opponent didn't play 2 toughness creature into Ral. They were like, you might flip him and kill my creature. And my other opponent was like, whatever, we could play a mana creature and we'll see what happens. And I'm like, kill your mana creature. And they're like, well, this game is probably over.
I love the optimism of that opponent, which, by the way, would have been me. I'm
oh,
what are the chances you put instants and sorceries in your deck with a card like Ral? It won't happen to me.
Yeah.
Narrator, it happened to her.
Happened to them. And so my good opponent, who, Pro Tour player, very good, he was like, all right, fine. Just going to play an enchantment and pass. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I guess I could try to
Who did you
Ral.
play?
Matthew Skikik Johnson.
Oh,
he's
he's
really
excellent.
He's
Big
really
fans. He's one of the Pirate Boys, been on the show before. Yeah.
And so he was like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to play this enchantment. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess I just plus Ral. I'm going to try to go to 8, which didn't work out for me that game. But
Patience.
The other opponent that I flipped it against on turn 3 did lose to it.
So the -8, the ultimate that you're referencing here, exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may cast instant and sorcery spells from among them this turn without paying their mana cost.
Yeah.
Did you do this?
No, I never got that
dang
high.
it.
I either Ral got paved by like 3/3s, or my opponent scooped to Ral going up to 5. I'm like, well, okay, yeah.
Okay, so you said you had a lot of energy with this deck.
Yeah.
Tell me what made you get into these colors. Ral is red. And
Ral's red. So
blue,
the big deal was I had a bunch of reasonable multicolored cards, and I especially had Scurry of Gremlins.
The Gremlins.
Scurry, yes.
They're so cute.
Yeah, they're very cute, and this card is incredible. It is white-red 2 for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 gremlin tokens, and then you gain an energy for each creature you control.
Nice.
Which is usually 4, 5, sometimes 3, depending on how bad the board is. And then you can pay 4 energy to give all creatures you control +1/+0 and haste until end of turn.
Nice. Oh my gosh.
Which, that is not activated as a sorcery, by the way.
You're right.
That is activated as an instant. So this is a combat trick. Also, it allows you to like race when you shouldn't be able to, because it gives all your creatures haste.
Yeah.
And a point of power. So I'm like, all right, well, make 2 creatures, give them all haste, attack in for 9 or whatever. And then my opponent was like, all right, I'm going to put the aura on my creature that gives it flying and lifelink. I'm like, well, I can't race that anymore. I guess I die. But
wow, this card's an uncommon.
This is an uncommon. This is very good. The energy payoffs. So I had that, and I had the Royal Cartographer, which is it's a 1/3 for blue and 1. It has landfall to gain an energy, which is very good. Landfall gain energy is great. And tap and pay 6 energy to draw 3 cards.
Oh yeah, this card seems excellent.
This is way good.
So this was in the deck that Megan played in the MH3 pre-con. She played the Jeskai deck, and it was great in their Commander game and great in Limited here.
Yep. If you can tap it once, you are almost certain to win the game. If you can draw 3 cards with it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, your opponent has to spend removal on it instead of spending it on some like 5/5 or whatever. And I mean, one game. It went long and slog. It was a long slog fest, and I activated it twice. It was not good for my opponent. I
mean, the landfall energy is nuts.
Yeah,
like,
it's very good.
You kind of have to play a creature, or you got to blink a creature, or whatever, and to get energy in this set. But this thing's like, oh no, here you go.
No, it just gives you a pile of energy, just like Scurry gives you a pile of energy. And so I'd end games with I'd either end games at 0 energy or 9. If I won the game, I was at 0. If I lost the game, I was at 9 because I have all this banked energy. And so, I mean, one time I cast Amped Raptor and was able to cast, what did I do, a 6 off the top of my library. I cast Skoa.
So Amped Raptor, you get 2 energy from Amped Raptor.
Yeah, it's a 2/1 for Striker for 2. It enters, gives you 2 energy, and then you flip until you hit a spell. And then you can pay energy equal to that spell's mana cost to cast it.
It's Energy Cascade.
Yeah, it's Energy Cascade. Well, but it's weird because it's the first spell you hit. I got one game where I cast it and I hit my Razorgrass, or was it
the land?
The Razorgrass Ambush. It's an instant, and the problem is that it deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and so I couldn't cast it. So I just netted 2 energy and a 2/1 for a Striker.
Well, that's
which is okay.
I'll take it.
But I kind of needed to get ahead. The other thing is that cards are 2-for-1s. Everything's a 2-for-1 in this format.
Yes, it is.
And so when Amped Raptor didn't hit, I was like, well, I'm going to lose this game, I guess.
A lot of card for card in this format.
Yeah, a lot of card for card. You end up having to try to get way ahead. You have to make a big swing. The 7/5 Eldrazi that has landfall to look at the top card and put it in your hand if it's a creature. My opponent gave it flying. And I was like, well, that will close very quickly. That will close this game ridiculously quickly.
Wow.
So you either are closing games fast with something big like that, or you're 2-for-1 and constantly back and forth until one person is left with a thing.
The dust settles and somebody has
the dust settles and somebody is slightly ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's a lot of sagas, Ral and the Implicit Maze and Ajani Fells the Godsire, both in my deck, and they're both a lot of cards.
I also opened both of these cards, Rob. I didn't end up playing either of them because I had other things to do, but they're both excellent. Like Ajani Fells the Godsire, the first chapter on that is you just exile a large creature power through your creator, right? Then you make a cat token, and then you give a creature double strike.
It wasn't in my initial draft of my deck, and then I was like, Prerelease is a continuous construction. I played my first round, and I was like, I desperately need to be able to exile creatures and exile big creatures.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, I got this Ajani Fells the Godsire, so it made it into my library, and every time I cast it was fantastic. I'm like, it didn't look great because of the mana cost, but I was like, it just...
You got to kill an Ulamog somehow.
Yeah, it's Ravenous Chupacabra. That's all you really want out of a card most of the time, right? You want to kill a creature and leave your creature behind.
Okay, so how did you end up with this deck? What was your record?
I ended up 2-1. Like I said, Matthew beat me up.
Wait, you 2-2, right?
Or 2-2, sorry. It was 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Matthew beat me up, and it was very feast or famine on lands. I'm playing 14 lands and 3 double-faced lands because I was concerned that I'm a really low to the ground deck, and I was concerned about not hitting them.
Yeah, you have a lot of cheap creatures in this deck.
Yeah, and so I'm playing double-faced lands to really act as both slots all the time, and I was a little greedy. Well, I was more than a little greedy. I'm playing Mog Mob in a 3-color deck, and it costs red, and so sometimes you just can't cast your spells.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I probably should have cut it. I was like, but I love this card.
You've got 4 of the Tri-lands in this deck.
I opened 7. And
holy cow!
Yeah, and so I was trying to use my tri-fetches to figure out my mana base.
Tri-fetch, that's what I was like, what do we call them?
Yeah,
tri-fetches. I love that.
They're alternate panoramas. They're also they're called landscapes, right?
That's what they're technically. Oh yeah,
the name X landscape is
shattered landscape, sheltering landscape, seething landscape. How does a landscape seethe?
You plowed it wrong.
Let me tell you, that would make me seethe.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly, right? just like, I can't deal with this.
I think try fetch is so funny because we're not trying to make fetch happen. We're making it happen.
We're making fetch happen. That's actually, I don't know. I feel a little weird about the format because everybody was playing 3 or 4.
Oh, and you have to.
You absolutely have to. And
they're just made, all value.
Yeah, they made everybody's mana basically close to perfect.
Yes, I agree.
I only had 2 circumstances where I couldn't cast Mogg Mob, despite the fact that I'm only playing like 7 mountains, or 5 mountains and 3 things that fetch them, or whatever, 4 things that fetch them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was like, I would draw Mogg Mob, and I'd be like, well, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you are getting slowed down slightly by playing these lands a little bit.
Yep.
But the cost is generally worth it for formats like this when you want just value.
But they enter untapped. They're not Terramorphic Expanse.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Terramorphic Expanse always enters, like, the land always enters tapped.
Yeah.
And so if you have reasonable stuff to do with a colorless mana sometimes,
like, go for it.
Yeah, just play them because they enter untapped. You can use them to play a spell. And if you play a ton of instants in your deck, was one of my objectives, was to play a pile of instants, because then you get to choose. You're like, well, they didn't do anything worthwhile. I'm not going to Thraben Charm them. And so then I just crack the land to fix my mana for the next turn.
Well, you sound disappointed that you get perfect mana in this format.
Yeah, I kind of like limited formats where you have to work a little harder. I mean, this is obviously going to be a high-powered limited format. It's a Modern Horizons. But I like the mana determines what you can do. And so what you can do is play 3-color decks consistently, I think. Or a splash pretty easily, which means that you get to play a pile of gold cards. You get to play the best stuff in multiple colors. My friend Patrick played 5-color nonsense. He just played every tri-fetch he opened. He played all of his best cards.
Did it work out for him?
He went 3-1.
Okay.
So pretty well. Yeah. But a lot of the time, like I was saying, it's feast or famine on whether or not you hit your mana.
Well, that's interesting, too, because people might be able to exploit that once we get into draft here, because you can definitely build a very aggressive deck in this format. Happened to me in the Creator Early Showcase event.
Yeah.
Got smashed by Skylar playing red-white. Whoo!
Yeah. The red-white deck looks like, I tried to be as aggressive as I felt I could be, and that was the fast half of my deck was the red-white.
Yeah, for sure. This definitely has an aggressive bent.
Yep.
But it could be faster,
Well, I think that blue is better than it looks. So Electrozoa, like, it looks kind of dopey. It's a 3/1 flyer for blue and 2 with flash.
Oh, yes. I love this guy.
The thing is that it's a 3-power flyer with flash for 3.
Yeah.
Its drawback is, so it enters the battlefield, gives you 2 energy.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, tap it unless you pay an energy. Well, you just, like...
Always have energy.
Yeah, you just always have energy. On their end step, you make an Electrozoa on 3, and then if you're playing, like, red-blue... There's so many energy creatures. I had Thriving Skyclaws, and I would just play it and I'd be like, I have energy forever. There's nothing you can do about this.
Yeah, those are the ones that give you 3 energy.
Yeah, they give you 3 energy. They're 3/2 flyers.
Yeah.
And you can spend 3 energy to put a +1/+1 counter in them during combat.
Like,
You don't care that much. Mostly they're just like a 3/2 flyer for 4 that made you 3 energy, which is all that you really wanted.
Yeah.
Because they trade with a bunch of things. They apply pressure. So you can play a bunch of, like, reasonably fast flying energy-driven threats.
I agree. That's 3/1. I mean, flying, okay, I'm just going to say it. Flying is very good in this format, I believe, because if people are going to be derping around doing huge Eldrazi, well, generally they don't have flying.
And not even huge Eldrazi. The Eldrazi Scions mean non-flying, non-trample creatures.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
Can't get through, or the
That's
Eldrazi
true.
spawns, sorry.
The spawn, the O1s.
You can't get through them. And so, like, over and over, I would just be like, all right, I'm going to make some, like, random ground creature and then start attacking, and they're
then
like,
you're like, oh
yeah, ship some spawns,
just kidding.
and then they make a big enough Eldrazi like you're talking about, that now they can block now that the spawns have been exhausted.
And there is that artifact in this set that lets you just continually make Eldrazi spawns for, like, I think a colorless and 1. I had that in the early access event too, and I was like, is this real? And then it turns into an 8/8?
Yeah.
What card am I talking about? I'm going to look it up. Continue, Rob.
Yeah, but there's a lot of ways to make a bunch of fast spawns. One of the green-red Eldrazi has double Secret Reach, because...
I got Secret Reached hard.
It has two lines of text reach and then 2 more lines of text. It is very funny, because
Idol of the False Gods, everybody. Watch out for it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but I attacked into this Eldrazi with, like, a Mandibular Kite germ, and my opponent was like, block. And I go... Wait, this made 2 spawns when it enters the battlefield. Gets a +1/+1 counter whenever he sacrifices a card.
Is this illegal?
Yeah, I'm like, that is reach? He's like, yep, it is
Judge.
reach. And I'm like, well, okay, well then I guess I'm gonna try to use a removal spell on it. And he goes, all right, sack my spawns.
Are you talking about Writhing Chrysalis?
Writhing Chrysalis, yeah, that.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right, ship the 2 spawns to give it counters. And I was like, yep, that's what I needed. I use the Expel the Unworthy because it deals 3, or not, sorry, I used Razorgrass Ambush because it deals 3 damage.
Sure.
And I'm like, this would go up to 4 damage. You have to sacrifice both spawns because I decided that I wanted him to not have the mana on his turn because it would go to his next turn and he would have 7 mana available. And I'm like, no, I can't do this.
That's
you have
too
to choose.
dangerous.
You have to choose either between having your 2/3 or having 7 mana.
Oh, man.
And so he chose to have his 2/3, which then I used Dog Umbra to lock down. But yeah.
So this Eldrazi deck, with that card we just mentioned, Writhing Chrysalis, which is 2 red-green for that 2/3. It's got Devoid. When you cast it, like you said, you make 2 spawn creatures. It has Secret Reach. That's like the 6th line of text. Whenever you sacrifice an Eldrazi, you put counter on this thing. And then we've got another red-green bomb in Eldrazi, in Eldrazi here. 3 red-green for a 5/5. Titan's Vanguard. This has Trample, and when you cast a spell, and whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each other colorless creature you control. The combination of these two, I don't know what you do. It happened to me. It can happen to you.
Yeah, you can't fly around them because this thing is a 5 toughness reach creature. Yep. And so there's nothing that gets around it. Like, you're obligated to have, like you have to have some of this non-toughness based removal, or you have some really big toughness based removal.
It doesn't even need to attack. It just comes into the battlefield and it gives counters to everything.
Yeah, but in terms of, like, the way to get around it is to remove the Writhing Chrysalis and then try to fly over it and then try to race the... But then, like, I don't know. The Writhing Chrysalis can get bigger on demand. It seems very problematic.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out just because I think that's something people are going to be doing left, right, and center. Yeah, that it just feels nasty.
Yep, it felt very nasty. Like, I looked at it, I was like, this is very good out of my opponent's library, and sometimes things line up and you die, and that's what happened. And that's what happens a lot in this format. As you draw your stuff in the right order, you draw the good things together. There are a lot of, like, you can bank things for the best optimal removal spot to get a lot of value, and so then you can take some damage here, block a couple of times with some spawns to try to buy time so that you can get your removal to line up exactly right. Like Ral in the Implicit Maze, sometimes you have to just take a couple turns to set up and then play it and then get to sweep all the spawns.
Yeah, it does 2 damage too.
Does 2 damage. There's a lot of powerful stuff running around, and the variance was very high because you could open triple rare packs or quadruple rare packs.
Yes.
Depending on the
I'm going to tell you a story about that coming up.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds exciting. But, like, yeah, triple and quadruple rare packs. Some of the uncommons are better than some of the rares and mythics. I think that, like, Realm of the Implicit Maze is probably the best saga.
Ooh, nice.
I just, in terms of, like, how it behaves, because it's a...
So you get to deal 2 to everything, including their planeswalkers.
To just their stuff, not even your stuff.
Not your stuff, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Then you can discard a card and draw, and you can play them to the end of your next turn. Yep. And then you make that weird.
Then you make the weird, and the weird is much, much better than it looks, because, like I said, it's really instant heavy. And so, like, you end up in situations, like, I got myself, because I was like, all right, I'm going to try to deal 2 damage to this weird, and they're like, play a spell to give it a +1/+1 counter. Doesn't matter what the spell is.
Yeah.
And it's not prowess, it's a permanent counter.
It's a counter.
It's a counter. And then they're like, all right, I'm like, all right, well, make a Mog, try to deal 3 damage. And they go, well, I have another spell. And I go, I guess I lose this game because you had spells on the right times. But that's the nature of the format. And so you have to maximize because their spells got to 2 for 1.
I'm getting the feeling you don't like this format so far,
No,
Rob.
so I like it. So, like I said, I like tricky limited formats where, like...
So what's, like, your favorite of all timer? What's your number 1?
Maybe Magic Origins.
Magic Oranges.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, well, that was more of a straightforward set.
It was a straightforward, aggressive set. It had lots of secret things hidden in it, where, like, you were supposed to be playing the 1/3 for blue and 1 with no abilities in blue every time. Like, that was actually one of the better blue common creatures. Like, there was all sorts of really, like, intense, tough to decide. Your pool wasn't very good, but you could eke out, like, maximum value out of cards. I like cards that are bad getting to see play.
Oh, me too. Big time. I especially like it when bad limited cards or just limited cards in general that are commons make it into standard. That's my number 1 favorite thing. Overall, I don't know. How would you describe what kind of games you played when you were playing the format?
It was lots of swingy back and forth, trading removal.
Bomb, 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 bomb.
It will, no, not even bomb, bomb, bomb. Just like
bomb stuff happening is what I should
big
say.
big things happening.
Yeah.
And so then you felt like a genius every time you cast Witch Enchanter to disenchant, and you felt like a hero every time you cast Thraben Charm. You felt like my opponents would be like, all right, we're gonna trade off stuff, then I'm gonna use my quest for the necro, whatever the quest for the necro thing.
I wish that's what it was called.
And so
whatever.
Like zombify from my graveyard, so my best dead creature comes back. He was like, my graveyard's worse than yours. Oh, well,
it was a real slugfest out there, everybody.
It was a lot of back and forth.
It was like a boxing title match every game I played. Seriously, that's what it felt like. It was like, why was this not streamed? That's what I thought of my first 2 matches. I was like, get a camera in here.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff that's happening is very exciting.
Yeah, lots of 2-for-1s. Honestly, there was lots of tricky combat attacking and blocking, more than I would expect in a format like this. I definitely double blocked and triple blocked a lot, because it was like, if I'm going to do this, one of my I'm going to triple block here. You are going to kill 2 of my things, but I have to remove this permanent from the board. Like, I can't, if I leave it there, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And so they would make an attack. They're like, well, it's obvious that a triple block is bad. And I'm like, nah, I got to do it. And then.
Got to do it.
Yep. Sometimes you have to do it. And so then there was lots more of that than you would think. The removal is very good. All of it.
Yes. Agree. Cosign.
Yeah. There's a lot of good 2-cost removal. There's a lot of good 4-cost and 5-cost removal. And.
Powerful.
So, powerful.
Everything felt powerful.
It felt like if you played high power cubes, it felt like that. With some of the cards were actually more powerful than I would even like in a high power cube.
Yes, I would say it felt far more powerful than the other modern sets that we talk about, like Modern Masters, which had, of course, some really, really cool draft sets and synergies. I love playing fairies in that, for instance. But overall, I think the power level of each individual card is much higher than a set like Modern Masters, which you needed a critical mass of things to be able to do your thing. This is like, well, it's a 3/2 flyer for 4, and I can make it a 4/3, and also I get energy that I want to use for anything.
Yeah, everything did common. 2 things. That's the other thing, is that like sometimes in previous like Modern Horizon sets, you'd be able to play a card that was just like, it did one thing so well that you couldn't interact with it anymore. It was giant hexproof creatures or whatever. This set, everything did 2 things, so you'd remove half of it and you'd be doing fine, but then they would have gotten the energy back out of it, right?
Yes.
They make the angel that's a 4/4 flyer that makes 3 energy, right? And so then you kill the angel, and then they're left with this residual resource every time. And it was the same way on your side too. I'd play a card, and they trade for it, and the Mandibular Kite is, in a lot of limited formats, Mandibular Kite is a messed up card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know. It's in my deck, Rob.
Yeah,
so
and so
this is 1 white for an artifact equipment. And it's a living weapon, so you make your little 0/0 germ to put it on. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 in flying, and its equip cost of 3 and a white. Continue.
Yeah, and so it doesn't look like a lot in this format, and I never equipped it. I played the German. I just never had time and mana to be able to equip it on anything else.
Neither did I.
I didn't have any big bodies to put it on either, but like in a lot of limited formats, if you play a card like Mandibular Kite, which is basically like an evasive early drop that also makes your late drops evasive, it really is wild and hard to beat. And so I played it. It was adequate. And that's the funny thing. It's just there's a lot of powerful cards in Mandibular Kite left behind the ability to get flying. It didn't matter, but sometimes it mattered. So
I'm going to show you my deck now, Rob.
I'm excited.
Guess what? I also played Jeskai.
Ooh.
But I splashed for black too.
Yeah.
I had a lot of good fixing. I played a ton of the flip lands. The double face lands, lands, Blood-Soaked Insight, Razor Grash Ambush, Sundering Eruption, Suppression Ray. As I lay out my deck, can you talk about the usefulness of these? How do you have to think about them differently than normal lands?
So I think about them a lot of the times as if they're about half a land, because you're going to use them for that about half the time. So I treated them as a little bit more in my library, but like these, if I played 4 of them, I would probably feel like I could play 15 lands probably, because these are each one's about half a land. You could be more aggressive about it. You could think
why
about
do you
it
think
as a
of
full
why
land.
do you think of them as half a land?
Because you'll use them as a land about half the time.
Oh yeah,
is what I feel like. That's just my intuitive sense. I might be wrong, especially the monocolored ones, because they can enter untapped. 3 life's a lot, but entering untapped is also a big deal.
Yeah.
Somebody
at my pre-release is like, did you know you can pay 3 life and this comes in untapped? I'm like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
Sure
it's
can.
pretty good.
Pretty good.
But because you get the choice, it's quite valuable. If you have them in both of your colors, I would count them as more towards a land. So like the suppression ray, if you're playing Jeskai, it like is better at fixing, so you might play it as a land more frequently. Blood-Soaked Insight, I was playing in my library, but I couldn't use the black for anything. I was just playing it because it's a land that occasionally could act as a spell that drew cards. I cast it once. I played it as a land twice.
Right. I'm like trying to think. I think I played all of these as a land every single time, now that I think about it. I don't think I ever played them on the other side.
Razorgrass Ambush, I cast to remove attackers on a couple occasions. Sundering Eruption, I would play as a spell. Oh, no, this is the one that destroys a land. It destroys any land.
And
creatures without
blockers,
flying can't block this turn. So this is one that I'd play as a land more. Like, I don't care about destroying their lands that much unless they have something crazy.
I counted them as a full land each.
As a full land each?
Yep.
So you played like 13 lands?
I played 17 lands, and these are included in that count.
Okay.
So what is that?
13 lands other than these.
Correct.
Would be okay.
Yes. What do you think of that decision?
That seems perfectly fine. I
didn't know how to think about it.
I like to be a little more conservative on that because then I can count them into both slots.
Sure.
But if you're like, I'm desperate to play all my cards because it's a pre-release and I want to play all these cool cards, let's go.
Let's also
go. Play maximum
opened 1,
spells.
2, 3, 4. I opened 5 of the tri-fetches. What did you call the landscapes?
The landscapes.
And they all happened to be in Jeskai colors for at least 2 of their pips.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what pushed me into playing this Jeskai deck, because they would have been pretty useless if I wasn't in those colors. So I decided, kind of like my lands made me do it.
Determine what you're allowed to play.
If you will.
Yeah, I played all the ones that had 2 pips that were in my 3 colors.
So that was 5 total for me, plus these 4 double-faced lands, which was wild. So my mana was very, very good.
Yeah.
And I played as you can see here on the video, again, it'll be linked in the podcast show notes, but a aggressively slanted Jeskai deck that was half caring about energy and half caring about artifacts, because there's some cards that do that. I think that was, in the end, this deck's downfall, in that was trying to serve 2 masters, and it just can't. I only had 1 win with 3 rounds with this deck. But I did get a game off of both people who I lost to, so I'll give myself credit for that.
It sounds winnable. Those matches.
Yes, it was winnable, but that was the issue, right? I was trying to do too many things, 2 things, and I really should have been having one kind of game plan. So if you'll notice, I have 2 Furnace Hellkites at the top end of my curve here, 1 in foil, no big deal. This is the 5/5 flyer that has affinity for artifacts, flying, and it gets +1/+0 until end of turn if you pay a red mana. So it's a game closer outer, if you will.
How much mana do you think you were actually spending on that most of the time?
6.
6?
6 or 5, yep.
Oh, okay. So you're only getting like 2 points off the affinity?
Yeah, so I had how many artifacts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, because Furnace Hellcase is itself an artifact.
Yes.
And you have,
And I also had a Kappa Cannoneer at my top end, everyone.
Probably the reason to play artifacts. Kappa Cannoneer is a heck of a magic card.
This card's bonks. It's a 5 and a blue for a 4/4 Turtle Warrior. Now, this is where the set's going to trip you up. This card has Improvise. Does not have affinity. And I thought my Dragon's Head also had Improvise and not affinity. So I think Kappa's the only one with Improvise, but whatever. It's different.
I think that's true.
You tap your artifacts to pay for this. Hellkite, you just get them for cheaper. It has Ward 4. Okay.
It's basically hexproof. In limited, it might not be, because I would Thraben Charm this for 6 mana, right?
Yeah, definitely got to kill it, because when it comes in, it gives itself a counter, and anytime you play a creature, it gets another counter, and it's unblockable.
When you play an artifact.
An artifact, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would grow this buddy and just swing in for unblockable damage. It was great. So that was the artifact thing I was trying to do. I had Cranial Ram already banned in
banned in Pauper.
Which
that is Living Weapon, right?
It does have Living Weapon. It's red-black for an equipment Living Weapon. Equipped creature gets +X/+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control, equip cost of 2. People just killed it because they were scared of it being banned and thought I was playing a lot of artifacts, but I really wasn't.
Well, but that's probably actually kind of right, though, because...
Oh, I'm sure.
Because the minimum case scenario...
I didn't have enough artifacts.
The minimum case scenario is if you don't have anything else, then it's +1/+1, right? Because it's the only artifact.
Yes.
But if you have a couple, I see you have Inventor's Axe there.
Yep.
Which, fine. I didn't play this in my energy deck. Did you like it?
I don't think I ever did anything with it other than use it for its energy. Okay. My little goblin guy was much better red 1-drop. This was the 1/1, how do you say this? Sarpadian Simulacrum. Sarpadian Simulacrum. Goblin with haste, 3 in a red, sacrifice it. It deals 4 damage to target creature.
I mean, this seems great. That card seems actually very good.
I really liked the Goblin. It was probably my favorite of these little artifacts that I had in here. I had 2 copies of Expel the Unworthy, which is the 2 mana exile something with mana value 3 or less, or you can pay the kicker, which is 2 and a white, to just exile whatever, and the controller gains life equal to its mana value. Very flexible removal spell.
Did you kick that at all over the day?
I did kick it, yes.
Okay.
I had to kill an Ulamog.
Oh, okay.
You know how it goes.
That's fair, because I also had Expel the Unworthy, and I cast it for just its face every time.
Oh, yeah. It was an Ulamog killer for me.
Yeah. No, that's
great.
Good.
I won that game.
That flexibility is very nice.
No big deal. Utter Insignificance to make something a 1/1. Amphibian Downpour to make everything frogs. My opponent was like, what does this do?
Oh, it's incredible. Because it's Storm of Enchanted Creature becomes a frog, right?
It's a frog storm.
Yeah.
This was my poor opponent in the 3rd round, who had been brought to this event by his buddy, who was like, I need a ride. And this poor guy hadn't really played very much Magic.
Oh.
And I was like, bro, that friend deserves a reckoning for making you come to this pre-release.
Well, unless the friend paid their way in, you know.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, if
you're listening,
if I'm getting a ride,
we can Venmo you.
And well, no, it's just like I've got that deal before. I'm like, they're like, I don't really want to go and spend a bunch of money. I'm like, it's a Phantom event for you, but I'll pay for it, right? You play the stuff, I'll get all the cards. You give me a ride for free.
I press that button.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's reasonable.
And the poor guy, I'm like, this has Storm. I'm going to explain Storm to you now. You feel like your brain's going to melt. And he was like just looking at me. It was just like the terror in his eyes. And he's like, they're all frogs now. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. They're all frogs.
Did you cast like 2 spells before it? So you got to Storm 3?
It was very cute. I have a Failmancer in this deck, which makes a Death Touch Snake every turn. That was my Black Splash along with Cranial Ram. And the flip Planeswalker that I had was a Johnny, everybody. I had a Johnny. And he's great. He's a 1/2. So he just costs 2 mana, and he makes a 2/1 cat when he comes into play. And then if that cat dies, or any cat, honestly, Ajani loses his crap, and he turns into his Planeswalker side. I had a lot of fun with this, because he's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, this card's kind of busted, if I'm being honest with you. +2, you put a +1/+1 counter on each cat you control. Starts with 3 loyalty. 0, you just make another cat. 2/1, by the way. -4, that's not very high. Nope. I want to point out that is 1+.
He starts at 3, right?
He starts at 3. It's 1+ from him. He's going to wipe your opponent's board. They get to choose. What do they get to pick? They get to pick an artifact, creature, enchantment, and planeswalker, and then they sacrifice everything else.
Yeah.
Sick. And yes, I did ultimate him. Thanks for asking.
Ooh.
And no, I did not win that game.
Well, they got to keep their creature. So I assume that's what the problem was.
I'll tell you what creature they kept is what was going to tell you something. It's an Ocelot Pride, which is cat that when you gain life, it make cat. And then if you have the City's Blessing, it make 2 cat.
Yeah.
So
or it can duplicate another token if you happen to randomly have another token.
I think they had 20 cats at some point in the game.
That card is
They had 2 of them.
Really?
Yep.
Eric faced on Ocelot Pride, and he came over to me afterwards just dejected. He's like, Ocelot Pride is a messed up Magic card.
It is! 2 is even more messed up.
Yeah, but they have to gain the life to make the token. So, it's possible that they don't make it.
Uh-huh.
But it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
They probably gained a life.
But Ajani was sick anyway, I will say. I had a Spawn Gain Commander, which is our little Eldrazi version of Siege Gain Commander, which I just loved.
It's not that little. It's just great. It's just Siege Gain Commander, right?
I kept calling him Siege Gain Commander. I'm like, oopsies.
There's also a Siege Gain Lieutenant in this set.
Oh, what does he do?
I think he's got. Does he have Lieutenant? Lieutenant's an ability, so I don't think he has it.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think that mechanic's in this set. I mean, all the other ones are, but I don't think that one is. So this deck, it was very fun, everyone. Like I said, I got games off the people I lost to, so I had a fantastic time. Everything, like I mentioned, felt very big, very swingy. I felt like the boxing gloves were constantly coming at faces. Somebody was tearing off an ear. Somebody was getting punched in the junk, and the crowd was going wild. They loved it. My first round opponent was playing an Eldrazi deck, and it's one of those times where you go to a pre-release and you opened that?
Yeah.
You opened that deck? You didn't just draft that in the most lucky draft of your life? It was bonkers. It was so good. Ulamog came at me in 2 different games. exiles half of your library.
Yep.
It gets Annihilator based on whatever the highest number of the mana value of the card you exiled. So it routinely is Annihilator 5 or 6.
Yep.
And then they also had it with the 5/5 that gives counters when it so then it gets more Annihilator triggers, the more counters it gets, which was fabulous. But one time I said I did kill it with Expel the Unworthy. But then after the games, my opponent was like, I didn't even get to play my Emrakul, and slams it on the table.
What? Still had all these?
I was like, get out of here with that.
What?
Yes. And I said, what are you doing? Like, this isn't real. They had the 2/3, they had the 5/5, they had the Ulamog, they had the Emrakul. Get out of town. And then he's like, yeah, and they were in the same pack. Ulamog and Emrakul. He's like, I don't know if I can cast it. And I'm like, shut up. Of course you can cast it.
Yeah.
Like, you're making all those spawns. No big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. Anyway, that deck was sweet. And yeah, the other deck was sweet. The double Ocelot Pride I talked about. And then got my poor win after my poor round 3 opponent who was just dragged there by spot. Rather, he dragged his friend there through his car.
Yeah.
You understand.
I think that my deck would have lost as much as yours. Like, yours actually looks significantly better than mine. You have a lot more like bomb payoffs. But my problem was that like I couldn't pick any other colors for support. Like, you have Small Game Commander's really good. Depth Defiler. This card's great, right?
Yeah, I didn't get to cast him, unfortunately, but
okay,
yes,
it
enough. Is good. I just think that if I had a more dedicated artifact strategy or a more dedicated energy strategy, it would have been better all around. But yes, I do have some good bombs like the Opheomancer, which is, I'm not going to really call a bomb, but I mean, it's a very good.
That card's like.
It's not going to win you the game.
It really is, though. Like, it makes a snake every turn. Your
game.
Opponent can't ever get through it with a ground creature again because it makes a snake every time the snake goes away. Like.
All right.
I'll
give it an A.
It's a commander card from back in the day that's really, really annoying to deal with. So my opponent played it, and they were like tried to hunt for their snake in their box, and I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna kill it.
Yeah.
They're like, really? They're like, but I'm like, on your end step, I'm gonna kill this because you're gonna snake them up. You're never gonna be able to attack you again.
Ever again. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, that's fair. And I'm like, I have experience with this card. We're not.
I've been here.
Yep.
I had a blast. I gotta tell you. Yeah. That's why. But I thought when I played those games, they should be on camera because everything that was happening was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a fun time. People played all sorts of preposterous things. It was just that I have questions about how this is going to feel in the long term as a little bit.
Rob has questions, okay?
Yeah,
I'm
always cautiously optimistic, but I think this time I'm more cautious. I don't know.
We'll find out.
It's a good set. Like, it's got lots of fun cards. It's got lots of like payoffs that are neat to exist, like this Furnace Hellkite. Like the fact that it is both halves. It is an affinity for artifacts that is an artifact. That's always nice.
Yeah. He helped out my second one.
Yep. And I like colored affinity for artifacts cards because then they don't cost 0.
Yeah.
Frogmere Enforcer is super cool though. I appreciate that card. That card's very fun.
I wished I could go to another one. That's how I felt. Oh, I also played in the streamer event. I do want to tell a quick story about that.
Ooh, how was that?
So it was, it was fun. I played against Graham one round from Loading Ready Run, and I had actually been watching his stream as I get queued into him, and so I turned it off and I played him. I was playing a Jund deck, so I was trying to Jund him out.
Yep.
It didn't do very well overall, but I did beat Graham with it, which I gotta tell the tale. So. I had a big Eldrazi deck doing fun Eldrazi things. I also had a Toxic Deluge. So Graham was building up his side of the board. I had gotten his life fairly low, but he had managed to come back and build his board back. I decided to flunge and just attack with wherever I had it. So I'm like, it's not getting better. He's going to keep building back. I attacked with everything. I thought maybe I had lethal, but I did not do the math. Classic Bartholdi move. I put him to 1. Okay.
Math is for blockers, as they say.
Exactly. So I'm like, shoot, should have done the math on that one because he did have a significant board presence and could have killed me on the crackback. And so I decided to cast my Toxic Deluge to kill most of his remaining blockers. He gave me a sad face emoji and passed back to him. He was not able to kill me. And I top decked a spell that did 4 to the face. Sorry, Graham. That was luck sack for sure.
I mean, that's what content does, right? That is good content.
That was great content. ripping hotter. I texted him. I'm like, ripping hotter than a bong on 420 or something like that. It was cleverer than that, I promise. But I felt kind of guilty, but it was really great. So if you want to see it, everyone, go and check out his VOD from the early access streamer event because it was quite a fun game. And, and I just want you to see his pain as he loses from my stupid top deck. But overall, very fun, very big, very bomby. I too am interested to see where draft ends up in this format. We are recording this before the set is released on Arena, so we don't know yet, but you will all have a little bit of a better idea than we do because it will have been out for a few days at the point this episode releases. We're going to draft this in Amsterdam at the Pro Tour, so I'm super excited for that.
That's really exciting.
Right?
That's going to be wild.
Yeah.
Seeing the pros with their high variance draft formats, like that always feels like very appealing because you get to see them play all the really powerful stuff.
And do kind of like, and they know how to do it, and they'll build their decks correctly with their 5 mana color base, all that kind of stuff. I was gonna say, everyone, you should tune into that Pro Tour. That's gonna be the weekend of the 28th and 29th coming up this month. From Amsterdam, they're going to be playing Modern, and they're going to draft Modern Horizons 3. I'm going to be hosting as usual, so I want to see y'all there and see you in chat and hang out and chat with you about what's going on. I think it's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited to see what changes in Modern because of the release of this set.
This is going to make a lot of difference to Modern. There's so many cards that have such a huge impact.
I agree. Next week is normally when we do our Pro Tour preview episode for you all, but because the event is in Europe, I'm going over a little bit early to adjust to the time zone, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to play you an episode about our silver bordered Commander episode that we have on Commander Arcade with Judge Eric next week, and then we'll be back with you starting the week of let's check it out. We're also going to record an early episode for right after the Pro Tour because we'll still be in Europe. Hashtag recording schedule. But the week of the 8th, we'll be back in our studio here in Minneapolis and be able to tell you everything that went down at that. And of course, interact with you on social media. If you want to talk about that in the Discord, if you're a patron to talk about any of this, we'd love to see your builds in there. So excited to see where this format goes from here.
The variants and the high-powered cards, the really interesting potential aggressive deck that like you said, probably exists in there.
I'm sure it's there.
Like in draft, I think this is going to be a better draft format than a sealed format. Is part of it because maybe I was just disappointed because my sealed pool wasn't extraordinary. Like Ral was the best card in it. He was good. He was very good. But then you have the guy who opens triple Eldrazi, Titan, and the double Ocelot Pride.
I know. Well, everyone, let us know what happens to you when you're playing this format. We'd love to know and chat with you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Judge Rob, for hanging out. Let's close up the show. Thanks, friends, for hanging out with us this week. Thanks to Judge Rob once again for coming on, filling in for Megan, who may or may not be alive with us. Just kidding, she is.
She's doing okay.
Yeah, she's just tired and hopefully doesn't have COVID. We'll find out. But yeah, thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Check it out, patreon.com/GLHF Magic. We would love to say thank you on some of our upcoming episodes to patrons who join at $5 a month or more. You can check out our Commander Arcade channel at youtube.com/@GLHF Commander for the MH3 decks. And coming up next week, Sunday and Monday, is going to be our silver bordered episode. It's entirely nonsense. And yes, Nerf guns are involved. That's only a minor spoiler. You've got to see it.
Yeah.
You just gotta. And thank you to Card Kingdom. You can check them out as always at cardkingdom.com/GLHF. Rob and I are going to hang around to talk to our producers. We're going to do a crack-a-pack, everybody, with Modern Horizons 3 Collector Boosty.
Very, very excited.
We've got the good stuff. Are we going to open, right now, are we going to open one of the, what do they call it? Serialized cards? The numbers?
Yeah.
That's in here.
We could open a serialized card. We could also open, some very weird, full art foils.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they look so good.
All right, producers, get in here. Everybody else, thank you. We'll see you next week.